Hi, I'm Jack Palance. I've been all over the world. Manhattan, Hollywood, Europe, South America. I've worked and played where they bathe on sandy beaches all year round. I've been where the snow-capped mountains rise majestically over beautiful little villages. I've been where mink-coated beauties and orchids are almost as plentiful as the huckleberries I used to pick just a couple of 100 yards from here. And I guess I'll be going back to Manhattan and Hollywood and all the rest of those places. I'd be a fool if I didn't want to go. But the only place that I can ever call home is right here. I guess that's because I'm still a coal cracker at heart. But these towns and all of these people are in my blood.
With your kind attention, a song I will trill. All you that must toil with the pick and the drill, and sweat for your bread in that hole in Oak Hill that goes down, down, down. And sweat for the coal in that mine in Oak Hill that goes down, down, down.
The men of this land worked in damp, dangerous tunnels under the mountains, under the towns, under the rivers, and many of them died. Many were maimed and crippled by the crashing rock. Many were choked and poisoned by the gas. Still they hung on, and they're still hanging on. If you were standing here with me, looking at what I'm looking at, you'd see miles of scarred hills, their guts ripped open by giant shovels, and trees pulled harshly from their roots and left to rot on the edges of deep, barren ravines. You'd see tall black heaps, we call them culm banks, with dirty traces of winter's snows clinging to the jagged hunks of slate, the refuse of spendthrift days. You'd see in the bleak valleys below us clusters of dismal houses, each tiny clump overshadowed by the gray skeleton of an abandoned colliery, a sad reminder of the past glories of Black Diamond country. The land of anthracite coal. It's 500 square miles of the richest hard coal country in the world. It's in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania. Some people from Connecticut settled the valleys about 50 years before the Revolution. There were a lot of wild legends about coal in those days. I remember one about a trapper named Nico Allen. He arrived in one of these valleys and he built his campfire for the night. And then he woke up and found the whole hillside on fire, rocks and all. Old Nico got out of there so fast, he forgot his furs, he forgot his traps, he forgot everything. I think he thought he'd died and gone to hell. At first, coal mining wasn't a business. It was a crazy gamble. There was no way to get the coal to the cities except on barges. And the rivers were so full of rocks, they were almost impassable. When they did fight their way down to Philadelphia, the city almost lynched them. The black rocks were called a swindle. They wouldn't burn hardly at all. The smoke was supposed to be poisonous. But against the odds, a business slowly grew. By 1829, only 25 years after the first load of coal had nearly landed everybody in jail, business was so good that they had to build 4 new canals carrying 112,000 tons of anthracite yearly to Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New York. You know, coal miners are strong union men, but it wasn't always like this. Time was when the hard coal miners were just as divided as the workmen on the Tower of Babel, and they came from as many different places. But then about 10 years before the Civil War, the owners and the operators of the mines let down the floodgates, and they promised the Irish everything. A decent place to live, a chance to educate their children, fair wages, and freedom from discrimination. And this was just great for the starving sons of Erin, with the additional bonus of being 3,000 miles away from the hated absentee English landlord. So, what did they get when they reached Luzerne, Schuylkill, Carbon, and the other Pennsylvania hard coal counties? I'll tell you. The O'Briens, the O'Tooles, the Laffertys, the Kellys, and the Kehoes, Mom, Pop, and 6 or 8 kids, and always another on the way, were put into 2-room, windowless shacks, hot in summer and freezing in winter. Floors of Mother Earth tramped down hard by 2 and 3 generations of bare feet. Later, they were joined by the Lits, Slavs, the Hungarians, and the Poles. All they got at the end of the month was what they called a bobtail check. And all that showed was what they owed at the Pluck Me, the company store. So, the miner rarely had a cent of cash. And it wasn't unusual, and all a man had left after 20 years of hard labor was his debt to the Pluck Me. Around the early 1860s, the Irish immigrants got mad and started a terrorist group called the Molly Mcguires. Some authorities say they were the early Unionists. Some say they may have started out that way, but wound up as bands of cutthroats interested only in revenge. But whatever they were, they put the fear of God into the supers and bosses. They even beat up a few priests who spoke out against them. By this time, the mines were in the hands of the railroads. The giant rail fortunes, the Vanderbilts, the Mellons, were mostly backed by coal. This marriage with railroads was probably always in the cards. Rails were faster than barge canals, and they could shuttle the heavy freight to markets all over the country. The railroads had big money in coal. But this kind of huge investment meant that they had to get their profit out fast. Paid overseers worked on a quota basis. Never mind how they got it, as long as they got it. The owners were more interested in railroad expansion into the West, and their consciences were protected by their distance from the mines. No love lost between the owners and the miners. The miners were being bled, and they knew it. The operators saw the union as a bandit out to rob them of legitimate profit. And before long, both sides strapped on guns. The miners took to the hills, derailing trains, setting fire to collieries, sniping at company police and strikebreakers. The mine country was a bloody battlefield. By 1890, the miners knew that what they needed was a strong union. The Philadelphia Knights of Labor joined Samuel Gomper's new American Federation of Labor to form the United Mine Workers of America. Its great hero was a miner named John Mitchell, 5th president of the United Mine Workers at 29 years old. Johnny Mitchell was a quiet man, but he was sick of being a whipping boy. He was sick of child labor and the horrors in the mines. So he challenged the money men to a fight. And the next few years made Johnny Mitchell a legend in his lifetime. When Johnny Mitchell started his campaign, his men were only making $2.23 a day. It was possible, just barely, for a man to make $50 a month. There were 20,000 kids between 10 and 16 years old making $1 a day in the breakers. The work was filthy, back-breaking, and dangerous. With 145,000 miners working, the United Mine Workers had only about 9,000 members in this district. But Johnny Mitchell knew his people. He called a strike. And 112,000 men walked off the job. Within a week, every major coal company recognized the union. This was the famous strike of 1900. Mitchell told the men, the coal you dig isn't Slavish coal or Polish coal or Irish coal. It's just coal. Then paid militia mowed down a picket line in Shenandoah. And George Baer, president of the Philadelphia and Reading, said, the rights and interests of the laboring man will be protected and cared for, not by labor agitators, but by the Christian gentlemen to whom God has given control of the property rights of this country. Oh, the coal miners, he said, they don't suffer. Why, they can't even speak English. George Baer probably wasn't completely typical, but he got a big press, and he made the President of the United States see red. Teddy Roosevelt called him on the carpet. Negotiate or arbitrate. It was quite a meeting. The President said, there was only one man at that conference who behaved like a gentleman, and that was not I. It wasn't George Baer either. The only gentleman, according to Roosevelt, was Johnny Mitchell. I was part of some of the good years in this valley. Oh, sure, there are miles of scarred hills all around now, but I remember them as they once were, covered with pink and white laurel. I remember a hidden mountain stream dammed up by a boy and his gang, a place to play hooky and pretend you were Tarzan. I see the breakers, but I don't see them as forlorn hulks conquered by a giant called oil. I see them as tall, almost noble structures jutting into the sky. I hear the endless roar of machinery, a meshing of gears, the chug-chug of little engines, lokies, pulling squeaking loads behind them along bumpy tracks. I hear the rattle of empties rolling back down into the mine, 1,000 feet below the surface. I see rows of houses. One of them is my own. I see those quiet, shadeless streets, and I hear on their worn surfaces the echoes of marching men. It is 6 a.m. A half hour before, blasts of a half-dozen deep-throated colliery whistles within a radius of as many miles have roused these men from heavy sleep. Now, tin lunch pails bouncing against tin water flasks, carbide lamps fastened to peaks of caps. These denim-clad miners' feet in felt or rubber boots move along quickly to their jobs. Some grumpy, some hungover. Some noisy and some cheerful. But all ready to do a day's work for a day's pay and damn glad of it. Oh, God knows they'd never admit it. Then, at any rate. I have rich memories here. Times were good in this valley. And there really was a day when coal was king. This was right after the First World War, when our men came back as heroes. And they found plenty good jobs. Far off Broadway glittered with a million lights powered by coal. Foundries belched coal smoke around the clock. Steam locomotives thundered along thousands upon thousands of miles of gleaming track. Ships and freight cars and barges sucked anthracite into their fat bellies until they could hardly stagger out of the terminals. Some coal mines operated at 100% capacity, and a few miners walked home with $50 a day. During those years, America stood with its feet planted on a solid black foundation of coal. We didn't know the giant would soon lose his footing. 1921 began a downhill plunge for the miner. It took him 12 years to reach the bottom. American householders discovered a new fuel to put in their furnaces. They made John D. Rockefeller the first American billionaire from oil. Hard coal production fell off almost 50%. By 1926, the mines were sick almost to death. Owners and miners were desperate. Union contracts were ignored. By the 30s, 2/3 of all anthracite miners in Pennsylvania were out of jobs. But some of them wouldn't let the mines close down. When the company pulled out, they kept on mining and sold the coal themselves. It was bootleg the coal or watch your family starve. By late in the Depression, there were 12,000 Pennsylvanians stealing coal from the mines. It was time for a leader. John L. Lewis had been president of the United Mine Workers since 1920, but the rank and file didn't have much use for him. He was too conservative. But when Franklin Roosevelt pushed through the National Recovery Act in '33, there was a key clause practically dictated by John L. Lewis. The workers had the right to join unions of their own choice and to bargain collectively. Lewis came away with 400,000 members. He organized the production workers, steel, tire, rubber, and electrical factories. He pulled the union out of the AFL in 1936 and founded the CIO. No matter what you thought of him, Lewis never broke faith with his men in the mines. He was fighting a losing battle with coal, but he fought like a miner. With World War II, everybody had jobs in the mines again. But oil was pouring out of the ground at the rate of 1 billion barrels a year. Natural gas almost 3 times that. By 1947, hard coal mines were closing left and right. Once 20,000 miners made their living in the Wyoming Valley, and now there were only 5,000. Black diamonds had lost to black gold, oil. But the coal is still here, and maybe there'll always be enough jobs to keep a few of the companies alive. When they can't find work in the regular mines, the men often try the small outfits, working on leases from the big companies. These fellows formed a partnership to keep their mine working after the old owners closed it down.
After the parent company, the Lehigh Navigation Coal Company, suspended operations in 1954, a period of 6 months of idleness in the whole valley was taken slack by the Lansford Panther Valley Coal Company, which folded after a year or two, enabling the Coaldale Mining Company to take one of the operations, who folded after 4 years due to the cost of pumping operations and the market conditioning. After a period of 6 months, through our president here, Mr. Zuzu, who conceived the idea of opening up this operation here, we, as 4 partners, took a gamble and opened up the mine. We have been in operation for the past 4 years successfully due to the fact that the men realized that traveling 150 some miles, a round trip back and forth, was a little too tiresome. And if not that, then staying away for the week and coming home on the weekends. So through their determination and effort, we proved ourselves to be successful for the past 4 years.
This mine is located in the center of the Panther Creek Valley. As recently as the 40s, there were approximately 7,000 men employed in the coal mining industry in this valley. 5,000 of these men were employed underground. Today, there are approximately 400 men employed in the coal mining industry in this valley, 18 of whom are employed underground. And that's this operation right here.
In the mines, you hardly see picks and shovels anymore. The job is handled by machines. For over 100 years, this tradition's remained. These men are sons and grandsons of the old-time helpers the miners used to hire out of their own wages. Today, of course, they're regular paid hands, but the licensed miner is still the boss of his crew. When coal was booming, there were shifts around the clock. Nowadays, there are only two. Mules aren't used for hauling in big mines anymore. It's still pretty dangerous to go down into the mine. 284 men were killed in American mines last year.
I've seen men die, I've seen them get killed, and I myself was involved in one of the accidents. The man right alongside me was killed. I had a fractured skull, broken shoulder, nose injuries. You can see the scars on the nose right now. That's from there.
One time a guy saved my life in the mines. I was working for John Chernetsky, and on his government job, and we was recovering props, and there was 3 props we had to go back to get. It was carrying them out, and he tripped and fell, and then one prop fell across my leg, and I couldn't get out. And he came back in and picked the prop up, and the moment we get out, the whole roof come down. I was sweating then.
It's dangerous work, one thing. It's always worry when you get up in the morning, they go to work, you're always worried. Because a few years ago, 10 years ago to be exact, he was hurt very bad and almost had his leg cut off. So now when he comes home a little late from work, I'm worried. And I think every miner's wife has the same opinion.
Traveling down that coal town road, listening to my steel wheels whine. Goodbye to Buckeye and white sycamore, I'm leaving you behind. I've been a coal man all my life, laying down tracks in the hall. Got a back like an ironwood, bent by the wind, blood veins blue as the coal. Somebody said that's a strange tattoo you have on the side of your head. I said that's the mark of the number 9 coal. A little more and I'd be dead. But I love the rumble and I love the dark. I love the cool of the slate. But it's going down this road, looking for a job, this traveling and looking I hate. Someday when I die and to heaven I go, to heaven, the land of my dreams, I won't have to worry about losing my job to bad times and big machines. Well, I've got no job and I've got no pay, just got a worried soul. And this blue tattoo on the side of my head, left by the number 9 code, left by the number 9 code.
In small operations, you can still see mules working sometimes.
So I was born here 65 years ago. Shoemakers. My grandfather, Horrigan, he worked here about 80 some years. I just don't know exactly how many. But he lost his life in there, opened up the gangway in the water. Busted on him and drowned him. John Horoniak and Mike Samavitis, they do the drilling. They drill the holes and blast and dress the face down, make it safe. Trackington, he's the mule driver, but he helps to load the buggy when it comes in. Well, they all help. And then whatever works was to be done, they all get in it together, three. They timber, put road in. They come outside and Bill dumps the buggy, goes back in. It's all in a day's work. I worked in the mines, I guess, when I was 13 years old. I picked slate down here at North Monoy Colliery. At that time, we worked 9 hours a day, and I got $6.06 a week. So I continued on working until 1917. And I joined the Army. And after World War I was over, I come back, and I started back in the mines again. So I continued on from one work to another. I was assistant mine foreman for quite a few years. Then when all the mines had been shut down, there was nothing else to do, and you started your own little mine. So we leased ground off of different companies and continue on working. So right now, we get $6.50 a ton. That's a long ton, that's a 2240. Then we sell it wherever we can. And then we pay royalty, of course, to the landowner. That's 60 cents a ton, that's pretty cheap. And we work about 8 hours a day. And if we have good luck, I guess, at the end of the week, we can go home with $90 or $95.
How do miners feel about the failure of coal, the blasted hopes for themselves and their families?
But as far as I say, the industry would never be forgotten, but the government stepped in and started various projects of some kind to find different uses for coal because, like I said before, of gas and oil coming in. People are turning to that because of different reasons. But if the government stepped in and started different projects, finding other uses for it, I think it'd keep going for a long time.
I think it's got some years to go yet. But I don't think it's going to be all I got to done. Like Pete said, they can find different uses for coal, which they're finding. I mean, they're making different things out of coal right now. And if they find something else, it'll be okay. They might go on.
I'm 46 years old now. I spent over half of my life in the mines since 1938, or the last part of 37. I've been under the Army and all that, working under the demolition squads and stuff like that, you know. Then I started back in the mine. I started in off stripping work, gasoline engines and stuff like that. Then I started in tending doors. Then I worked myself up to runners, you know, operating rope riding and all that. And then I went mining in from 1941 on through the rest of my life.
I think that down here in Wanami Colliery, there is enough work for at least maybe 30, 40 years. But the question now is that we have miners down there is mining the coal that's up in age. They're up in 50s to 58 years old. In another 10 years, who are we going to have to mine this coal? That's the big question now.
My answer to that question, with my abilities, I could have been something more than I am today if I'd went after it. But like Henry there says, once you're born and raised here, why, it's pretty tough to leave the area. And that's my problem. I find I can't live in a city. I don't think I could be cramped up in an apartment 3 stories up or something like that looking out a window all day. That's why I bought a farm. I live out in the country now, and I got the wide open spaces to look around and nobody to bother me. And that's what I like. It's right in where I like to live.
Years ago, we used to get paid like for what we did, what they call contract. Well, some of the mills call it piecework. We got paid so much for the car coal, and your quitting time was when you were done. You were on a 5-car basis. You loaded your 5, you were paid for 5, you went home. Today, you're paid by the hour. I mean, whether you load 5 cars or you load 10 or 15, it don't make no difference. It's the same pay.
Father Pavelchik knows the miners well. His Russian Orthodox parish is in the town of Coaldale. He sees the problems, the discouragement, the suffering every day of his life.
I'm a son of a coal miner. My father worked in the Anthracite region, worked in the mines for approximately 38 years, and certainly I can appreciate the feelings which the people have at this time due to the closing of the mines, and appreciate their feelings, their fears, and also their hopes for the future. We have been affected, certainly in this particular parish, with the closing of the mines. The parish, I may say, was twice the size of what it is today. However, we still have a very good-sized parish. The fact being, the people love this region, and they have hope and confidence that we are going through a change which is only temporary. They love this region. They were born in this region. They've grown up. They've attended the schools. They've raised their families, and certainly, if I may say so, they look forward that when that day comes, that they will be also buried in this region.
150 years of mining have left the ground honeycombed with tunnels, drifts, shafts, and slopes. Many of them run right under the towns. In town after town, you see collapsing houses sagging into undermined ground. In Coaldale, a whole block of houses had to be evacuated because one of them suddenly dropped into a pit.
When I got up that morning, I went downstairs in the back where I have a bathroom, and I was shaving when all at once I heard a rumble under my feet. So I stopped shaving and I listened for about 1 or 2 minutes when the rumble started again. In the meantime, I went up for my wife and I called her down. I said, "There's something wrong in the cellar here. I hear a rumble." And then a third rumble came and it was in the next room. So I went into the next room, and when I tore up the boards, then I saw a crevice, so I took more boards out, and by the time I took about 5 or 6 boards out, I saw that the crevice was leading to my neighbors' homes up the street. And after that, I went and alerted the neighbors on both sides of me, and then I called up the authorities in Coaldale, the mayor, the chief of police, and the watchmen for the company coal lands. And they, in the meantime, they came in and they started investigating, and we ripped more boards off, and they did different testing, and they told us that it wouldn't be too safe to stay in the house overnight.
Around Wilkes-Barre, it costs $2,000 an acre just to reclaim the ground so that a new factory will stand out. The city has been able to buy enough downtown subsurface rights so that the Center City Business District is finally safe from further mining. Smaller towns don't have the financing for this kind of insurance. The legacy of coal is brutal. Water runs down into the old mine shafts and collects there, and then leaks into working mines. There's a constant danger of floods. There's 30 tons of water pumped out of some mines for every ton of coal. Rivers and streams in the valley are polluted. The creeks run yellow and red from mine water, sulfuric acid, stinking of rotten eggs. Or the streams run black from the breakers, carrying coal scum far down the river. Underground are hundreds of shafts on fire, fire that no one can control. Roads buckle and heave from the heat. The soil turns to ash. And always there's smoke, bitter in your mouth, stinging your eyes. Carbondale's been fighting a mine fire under the town for 18 years. 400 homes were ripped out trying to dig down into the flame bed. Great mounds of shale and scattered coal are left over when the ground is plowed by giant dredges. Strip mining boomed after World War II with steam shovels as big as 12-story buildings. It was cheaper and faster to claw your way down to the coal seam than to snake through tunnels after it. The shovels rip out thousands of acres of woodland, shearing off mountains, uprooting trees older than the Republic. To heal this wound will cost millions. It will take many years. The legacy of coal is cruel. There are no buyers for the homes, few customers for the merchants. little hope of salvaging the old, proud dreams. A reporter called these villages ghost towns, where the ghosts are still walking the streets. Wilkes-Barre has a new dream of jobs and industry. New industry needs trained people. Wilkes College was an answer. At first, it was only a junior college, but after the war, it became a 4-year school. For the first time, our kids, sons and daughters of miners for 3, 4, 5 generations, saw that a college education wasn't something impossible. They got their chance to join the 20th century. But a college education doesn't always help the district. Too few of the kids stay on to live and work in the valley after they graduate. They're well trained, they're ambitious, they go after the best jobs they can find.
Well, I plan to become a teacher, and in this area, there aren't too many openings that are attractive for that industry, that profession, and therefore I don't think that this would be an area for myself to come and work. However, it could be different in a few years from now, the way progress has been.
My dad worked in the anthracite mines for about 23 years until 1953 when he got laid off. Upon graduation, I am planning marriage in June, and then my wife and I will move out of the Wilkes-Barre area to seek employment. I will seek employment probably in the New Jersey area. I feel that the opportunities out of state are much better in industry. I'm a math major, and I plan to go into industry with my mathematics.
I'm from this area and a day student at Wilkes. I'm an English major here and plan to teach after I graduate in '66. Right now, my plans are to leave this area. However, as someone else said, that there is progress here now, and if things continue to develop, it's possible that I will remain in this area to teach. However, right now, my plans are to leave.
I was born in Wilkes-Barre in 1944, and I've lived here all my life, and I believe that Wilkes-Barre is a nice, beautiful city, clean, and I've enjoyed living here. However, the working opportunities, especially in the schools, and I intend to teach music education, the opportunities here just aren't quite what I want. So I do intend to move away unless the opportunities do come up to my standards. My father and mother have lived here all their lives. My father's father worked in the mines, and I have a proliferation of uncles, and my brother worked in the mines, and I don't particularly want to do the same thing they did because they've had to work very hard all their lives, and I want it a little easier than they'd have it. So I do intend to move away.
I'm from the greater Wilkes-Barre area also, and I've moved here just a few years ago. I like this area a great deal. I feel it's very friendly and definitely showing a great deal of progress. When I graduate from Wilkes under the English curriculum, I plan to teach English or preferably drama, and with the up-and-coming interest in arts in this area, I feel there's bound to be some opportunity for my profession in the future, and I'd like to give it a try here. If I find that things don't go the way I feel they should, I will leave the area.
I'm a senior pre-medical student here at Wilkes. I was born and raised here. I've had several uncles who spent most of their life in the mines, and in fact I had one uncle who died a few years ago in a mining accident. I plan to spend the next few years at least in a medical school pursuing my MD degree, and afterwards pursue a specialty in transplant surgery. When I'm finished, I'd like to come back to this area and see what I can do about encouraging the college students to remain here.
I'm a junior psychology major here at Wilkes, and I'm also a dormitory student. My home is in Riverside, New Jersey. Previous to coming to Wilkes, I hadn't been aware of the fact that this was an area of depression, as they term it. It was a great surprise to me, for this was in conflict with the attitude of the people and their optimism. And unfortunately, the statistics and the optimism don't seem to agree. And yet I can't help feeling confident that in the future, the situation will improve here, that there will be more jobs and more opportunities for college students. If the attitude of the people here is any indication of progress, I'm sure they will succeed. I myself would like to come back to this area if I find that my profession offers an opportunity here.
There was a big breakthrough around 1949. Everybody could see the coal business was shot. Other businesses had to be brought in, or the whole area would fall to pieces. Remember, it cost $2,000 an acre just to shore up the ground for factories. You need water, electric power. You have to live down a reputation for stormy labor relations. The Wilkes-Barre people pitched together and raised $250,000 to attract business. Then they expanded and drummed up more. By 1960, they'd collected $2 million. Today, they've raised $5.5 million and they're working on 6. They call themselves madmen. Maybe they are. Maybe only madmen could have pulled it off. To date, they've brought in or expanded 20 new companies, 2,000 extra jobs, attracted by 100% financing and low interest rates from the Development Fund. But most of the plants are light industry. Many of the jobs are for women. The miner's used to his rugged life. He's grown up using his muscle against black rock, not sitting in a production line. Despite all the advances, the miner is still a surplus American here. What about help from Uncle Sam? The Appalachia Bill, passed March 3rd, puts up over $1 billion to be spent during the next 5 years. 2/3 of it is tagged for highway and road construction, jobs miners are good at. It'll open up a region historically poor in roads. The bill also sets aside $36 million to reclaim land torn up by strip mining. The big hope is to attract tourists, to build up areas good for hunting and fishing, swimming, skiing. But the government money has to be spread thin. It's got to cover 11 states, maybe 12. But it's something. Welfare programs in Appalachia cost $400 million a year. The federal program will cost only about half of that. Could be that you and I'll wind up seeing those deep scars healed, the land restored. Wide highways curving through dense woods. The laurel, rhododendron, the honeysuckle, each in its own season, covering the mountainsides. Deer and other game roaming the forest as they once did. Clean, swiftly moving streams enticing the fishermen, and smoke rising lazily from 1,000 different campfires. And here and there we might see on the edges of Lansford and Coaldale and Tamaqua and Shenandoah and Plymouth and Hazleton and Latimer and scores of other little coal towns, modern factories rising one by one to help lure back our young men and young women from the cities beyond. For a land without youth is a land without hope. There's a good chance that you and I will live to see this happen. Maybe because these people, my people, don't give up easy. There's one thing we can be sure of. They'll give it everything they've got. And maybe with the help of far-sighted men in Washington and Harrisburg and New York and Philadelphia, in fact, far-sighted men everywhere, we can write a new chapter to the miner's story.
With your kind attention, a song I will trill. All you that must toil with the pick and the drill, and sweat for that coal in the mine in Oak Hill. It goes down, down, down. So I went to Oak Hill and I asked for a job, a mule for to drive or a gangway to rob. The boss said, come out, Bill, and follow the mob that goes down, down, down. And I asked him what tools would I need in the place. Not too many, said he, with a smile on his face. One number 6 shovel and damn little space when you're down.